is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ass. And we're back to kind of round out our top 10 lists this offseason. We've done position by position, and if you haven't checked those out, make sure you do. Today we're doing our top 10 defenses as a collective unit. Should be a fun episode. We've done these consensus top 10s. Each of us sent in a list, and then it's board account rank choice voting style to combine the lists into one correct Stay Hot consensus list. And we'll post the graphic later. And before we get into that, I do have a trivia question for you guys, but I won't ask it now. Of course, I'll ask, how are you guys doing on this beautiful Sunday evening?
Well, I was doing good, and now I'm nervous for this trivia question. There's been some TikTok drama going on.
That
has been incredibly interesting with Rico Knows. Say what you want about him, man. He's got lore. It is so bizarre. Just like you see like these posts that he makes, and then you'll be scrolling your For You page, and then like here's his twin brother denouncing his actions, and it's like, bro, there's just no way.
Dude, it feels so good because I have been tapped into this lore for years now. Like the brother I knew about, there's some stuff people haven't even figured out about Rico Knows, right? That there's still layers if you really want to keep digging that you could find out. And now it's just all coming out. And his brother rocked with him not that long ago. Like I'm blocked by Morant's rants because Rico didn't like me. And the two of them were like still tight, like not that long ago. But then I remember Rico was trying to move all of his content to YouTube. And then YouTube didn't pay him because he had the TikTok watermark on everything. And apparently he got like so pissy about that Morant's rants didn't want to associate him with him anymore, which I didn't know. But that like yesterday I had Rico's live up and Morant's rants is live up at the same time.
Dude, that's like red zone
watching
for
it like
Rico Knows drama.
Oh my God.
I was on Red Zone. One is, but I'm sad because I had so many questions I wanted to ask his brother because he was just saying anything, like anything people wanted to know. He was just talking about, but because I'm blocked, I wasn't logged in with any account, and if I wanted to log in and ask a question, I couldn't see the live anymore.
Is the Stay Hot account blocked too?
No, but I didn't know why.
Okay.
To be perfectly honest with you, like I don't remember this password to the Stay Hot account. I'm not even logged in.
Theo, we have a whole like.
I know, and I Googled it or I searched it in my mail, but I couldn't find it within 5 seconds. So then I stopped trying. Like I don't want to know that bad, but yes, it has been a crazy weekend on.
You don't have to remember any of the
Twitter
passwords. Like they're all at your disposal.
Yeah, I'm texting the group chat and asking you no matter what, man. So it doesn't matter where we keep them.
Just bookmark the passwords.
I think I even put a password in there at one point. I will say though, I genuinely do not remember the last time that I saw somebody's videos get as poor of a like to view ratio as Rico's Knows did over this past weekend or whatever. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of views and like 200 likes and 3,000 comments getting on him.
Yeah, man.
And then people, you know, and like Darius Slay and Brian Branch and like everybody was on him, man.
Oh yeah,
and rightfully so.
It's bad.
And rightfully so. I mean, he's been a horrible person for a long time, and that's why, like, I mean, it sucks that it had to happen this way, but it has been nice to see like everybody realizing like how much of a piece of shit that he is, because it's been this way for a long time, and he's done horrible thing after like horrible thing like since he got an account. So hopefully his account gets banned. I'm lighting up a cigar when I see this account no longer exists.
That is
hopefully, or hopefully like parent, because he charges to look at kids' high school tape, right? Like that's kind of how he makes a lot of his money. Is people want to get noticed. He's got Well, he had 185,000 followers. Now he's got 172. He lost 13,000 in 24 hours.
Wow,
but
that many?
Yeah.
Damn.
So hopefully no one goes to him wanting like his review on their kid on his platform anymore, because I think before people didn't quite know how bad he was.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Not good. So Theo, you're feeling very vindicated right now. Matt, how are you doing?
Like I said, I'm nervous for that trivia question. I do feel bad for the Kyrie Jackson. That really does suck, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
It was a
not
super
good.
shitty situation, so rest in peace. But outside of that, I've had a pretty normal weekend. I don't have anything to report. It's hot as hell in my room, though. I got the AC cranked. It's supposed to be at 58. Nah. No truth in that at all. So I'm struggling a little bit, but outside of that, I'm fine.
All right.
It's a rare cool day here in Denver this summer. It's like 78 today, whereas every other day this month is like high 80s, 90s. So me and Cammy went to the zoo. We saw the elephants, elite animal.
Nice.
Saw some lions.
Big elephant
pretty
fan?
elite.
The lions
Giraffes
were kind of
are
active.
elite too.
Mm-hmm.
Giraffes seem like something a little kid came up with.
The greatest animal was this like, I can't remember what it's called. It's got like the hind legs that are kind of striped like a zebra, but the front half of more of like, it almost has like a tapir-esque head and like a horse body and a long neck. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but
is it a
we were locked in
gazelle?
on kind of something along those lines. And we were watching that for a long time because it was in its enclosure with its neck pointed as high up in the air as it could get and its tongue all the way out, trying to get this leaf that was probably like just out of range. And it would like, the branch would blow kind of down and it would be like, oh, go, now is your chance. And then it would go back up. We could watch that thing for like a good 30 minutes, just trying to get the lowest branch in its enclosure. And I think it's pretty clear that all the zookeepers don't want it eating the like Denver leaves. I think they have stuff to feed it. So like all the other leaves are kind of like chopped down, or branches are chopped down so he can't get at it. And this is just the lowest one. And he was really, really trying to get at those leaves. So that was the highlight, plus the elephants.
Last time I went to the zoo, I was really entertained by the leaf cutter ant exhibit.
Yes.
They had big tubes, and it's like they're so dope because they'll like really do the thing they're supposed to do. It's like, I'm going to the leaf cutter and I want to see them like cut the leaf and then carry like a big chunk of leaf that seems way too big. And damn it, if they don't get to work and do that like very consistently and quickly, and it's something to watch. So I'm a big fan of them.
That's an underrated pull right there. The leafcutter ant exhibit is good. There wasn't one of those at the Denver one, but in Minnesota they've got that. You've got to go to the Cincinnati Zoo, the most infamous zoo of them all.
Yes.
I just realized.
I was about to say, that's got to be at the Cincy Zoo, because I haven't been there.
Matt.
Yeah, it's at the Cincy Zoo, which is very famous. You can walk right by that exhibit and you look right down to that pit. Same thing.
The last time I was at the zoo, I was a little kid, and the craziest thing happened to me.
It's crazy that it's such like I don't know if it's historically relevant, but it is internet wise, like incredibly. It was like the thing that happened on the internet, and it stayed like popular for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't know that it was at the Cincinnati Zoo, you would have no idea that it was at the Cincinnati Zoo. And the last few times I've went with people, I've like hit them with that little fact, and they didn't know it. And
really?
Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't have any kind of shrine up for the gorilla or Harambe because it would just be so fucked with. Like people would come and like it would attract probably like too much unwanted attention.
I'm trying
probably.
to think if they had anything. I genuinely have no idea.
Like there's no plaque.
I haven't. I think there's got to be. I feel like there had to be. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I have no idea.
I've never been.
And the tiger just got out. Was that confirmed, or was that fake news?
I have no idea. I don't
Is
know.
that tiger still out there?
I thought about making a video where I'm like, don't like, I'm locking in. Don't worry, but
I think that's on the case.
I think the hardest I've ever laughed at like a Stay Hot related tweet was in the comment section of that news report that there was a tiger walking around Cincinnati loose. And then someone tweeted the tiger right now, and it was a screenshot of your video out walking in the rain in that alley, kind of shrouded in darkness.
That was
was that Twitter account Landon?
I think it might have been Landon. I know he posted that recently again. That's a good photo. But Blaiden, you had a trivia question.
I do have a trivia question. While I was researching for this episode for our top 10 defenses, I stumbled onto a very not super weird fact, but I thought it was kind of interesting. Only 3 NFL teams last season had more rushing attempts than passing attempts. Who were they?
Gotta be the Falcons.
Not the Falcons.
Wow. Okay.
They're close. They were close, but it was not the Falcons.
The Steelers?
Not the Steelers.
Well, they could have been a good team. The 49ers maybe, because the
49ers had one. That was the one that was like, oh my god, because they were dead last in pass attempts.
Could it be? I mean, Lamar never puts up big volume throwing numbers.
Yeah,
could it be the Ravens?
It is the Ravens are there,
and he doesn't check it down.
Yep.
Ooh, we just need one more.
The Ravens only got it because they run so much. They had 541 rushing attempts.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
The Bears?
Yes, the Bears also had a lot of rushing attempts, 534. But they also had 513. Yeah, it is weird to think about, like
they're winning and then the other has Getsy.
Right. Well, and the reason I found is because I was looking at like the 49ers defense, who we're gonna talk about today, and I was like, it's weird. Their run defense efficiency didn't seem to be super great, and then I was looking at like their box numbers, and I was like, oh, it's because no one ever ran against them. It's like they had the number one like defense in terms of like rushing attempts faced. It's like no one ever runs against them, so when they do, it's like probably going to be a successful rushing attempt. And then I looked at the other stats.
Is so good, you can't beat them by running, right? They just
right. And then I looked and I was like, oh, they were dead last in pass attempts last year, and they had more rushing attempts than passing attempts. That was weird. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting stat to see that. But let's get into these top 10 defenses. The way we've been doing this is we've been starting off 1 and going down the list to 10. I figured that's a pretty good way to continue doing this, and we'll have some honorable mentions at the end as well. But our number 1 consensus defense is the New York Jets. And Matt, I feel like I've got to throw to you here with your guy Sauce Gardner being the king of this defense per se.
We've talked about the Jets defense. It feels like
we have
a million times, and maybe just in the last couple of weeks. But the rundown is that their cornerback play is probably the best in the NFL. I think they have the best cornerback in the NFL on top of that. Their linebackers, with Mosley leading the way, are incredibly good, and there's very few linebacker units when you look around that you feel like are strong. And then they have serious juice on the defensive line as well. I mean, they have Jermaine Johnson, they brought in Reddick, Quinnen Williams is there. So it just feels like a very balanced overall unit that statistically was awesome last year and kind of didn't lose anybody. The pitch is very, very easy for them. And it's kind of hard to imagine them not being one of, the top 5 defenses in the NFL. Whereas with almost, I don't want to say almost every other defense, but probably like 27, 28 of them, there's something you can point to where you'd be like, that could go really badly. That could be this could be a big fall off for them if this one thing happens. And of course, maybe we could say like if a certain Jets player gets, like if Sauce goes down, okay, fair enough. Yeah. But who couldn't you do that with, right? So I think the Jets as a consensus one feels pretty good.
Yeah, they've been they were second in defensive success rate last year behind the Browns. They were at 37.8%, which is obviously an amazing ratio. And the year before that, they were third. And they're the only team that's been top 3 2 years in a row. It feels like they have a core that is so good that it's sustainable. They didn't lose. They've got Saleh as their head coach, so it's not like they lost a defensive coordinator like the Ravens did. They didn't get exposed in the playoffs at all like the Browns did.
Right. That's a very good point.
For that number 1 spot, they feel like there was a couple teams where it's like, well,
I wonder why they didn't get exposed in the playoffs like the Browns.
It's because they weren't there, but it did leave a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth with the Browns defense to rank them number 1 after they just got so shredded versus Houston. I just don't think that would happen too.
I get not putting the Browns at 1. The big issue that I have with them is still their secondary. I don't think it's nearly as good as it gets credit for. The Broncos game always sticks out. When Myles Garrett got hurt, it was very clear that they didn't have the juice on the back end, especially with Greg Newsome, to hold up against Cortland Sutton, and like him by himself basically beat the Browns.
So was it unanimous that we all had the Jets at 1 then?
No, I put the Browns at 1 still. After all that,
I wouldn't expect anything less, of course. If my defense was that good, I'd be putting the Panthers at 1.
Yeah, I mean,
spoiler, I didn't even have them as an honorable mention.
Wow, that's bold of you, man. That's really big and brave. And
I think what really killed the Browns in the playoffs is that they have very great high-end guys, and Garrett and what he can do in the pass rush is up there with anybody, and having a dude like that on top of good cornerbacks, I think overall still is going to make you a very successful defense. But they have guys to go after. They have guys to attack. Their linebacker play is still not that good, and I just don't feel that way about the Jets. I'm not saying that they're perfect and all 11 starters are plus guys. We have some concerns about how good they're going to be at safety, but it's not on the same level as a Cleveland.
I have concerns with how good the Browns are going to be at safety too. So
right. And the other team that we saw get exposed in the playoffs, great defense in the regular season, some good cornerback play that maybe can be a little questionable in certain spots, and an amazing pass rusher, but the linebacker plays, it's the Cowboys, who are a very, very similar thing. It feels like.
Yeah, it feels like if you can survive their first wave, their defense isn't as strong, right? And that's the thing about the Browns is they kind of have to, or their whole scheme is, let's insert JOK into the pass rush. Let's get these guys going downhill, 5 of them, create one-on-ones, and then Garrett will kill everybody. Or they've got a couple people.
That's exactly what they do. And they love to move Garrett around so that one-on-one isn't always going to be the same guy. And, sometimes, you'll see him lined up just in the A gap. And then there's
your weakest
also
lineman is, why waste our time?
I mean, they'll move him all over the place. And then they'll also rush JOK, and they'll blitz the hell out of him against the run. And, when they pick their spots and they're right, you're probably gonna be in for a rough day. But if you can survive that initial attack, you're gonna be able to probably get some progress. Denzel Ward is the only. Denzel Ward and Grant Delpit are the only DBs that I have faith in on the back end right now. Delpit's gotten better in coverage. I know a lot of people love Emerson.
Emerson's a big PFF darling, but I don't think
I don't know if I'm sold on him yet. And then I don't like Newsome at all.
I agree on Emerson. I think that the stats inflate him a little bit being on that defense. I think Ward is really the guy who's the top dog in that secondary, and he doesn't have the numbers Emerson does. But I just think when you look at how offenses treat them, you've got to say Ward is a top tier guy. But if he were to go down and he's a bit injury prone,
if Ward's not on the field, if you are missing Ward or Garrett, I get very scared for the Browns defense. So,
but Emerson is still he's in his second year, and the early results are good, so he could maybe develop into to someone who's the top.
Right. Yeah, he's not like a fraud or anything, but I don't think he's like this tier. I think he's a tier below where Twitter would rank him, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't hate having the Jets be the consensus number one. They're obviously phenomenal. Matt, you're muted, by the way.
Did you have him at 2? Because I have the Browns at 2.
I had the Jets at 2. So
I'm assuming that makes Cleveland the consensus 2, unless Theo, you did something really crazy.
Well, Theo didn't have them at 2, but it still made them in the consensus 2 because Theo had them at 3. So it was close enough. Like the Browns were, like if we're going points, the Jets had 42, the Browns had 40. And then the third team is the Baltimore Ravens with a score of 35. But the next team is right behind them also. But the Ravens are the third consensus team here.
Yeah, I think the Ravens, they don't have the pass rush that the Browns do by any stretch. And I'm a little bit worried about the pass rush now that McDonald is gone, because he was so good at scheming up the sim pressures. And, you know, Clowney came in and had a spectacular year. And that's no given, right? That was a lot of that had to do with the defensive coordinator. Are they going to be able to maximize their talent the same this year? Mm-hmm. But I just think about their playoff performance versus the Browns and how the Browns just got shredded versus the Texans, and then the Ravens defense handled them easily and then really shut down the Chiefs offense for the entire second half. I mean, Lamar and the offense was struggling, but it's not like they didn't have chances because the defense was getting stop after stop versus Mahomes, and Mahomes hit some crazy plays to move the ball early in the game. So that's why I still got the Ravens at number 2. I think they've got an all-pro in the secondary. They've got an all-pro on the defense in the linebacking core. They drafted Nate Wiggins, one of my favorite defensive players in the draft. And if their new defensive coordinator can replicate any of the pass rushing success, if they learned anything from Mike McDonald, I think that they might have a little bit more of a legit, sustainable defense than perhaps the Browns do. But that pass rush is the great equalizer, because I know the Browns have an amazing one, and I just don't know about the Ravens. But I'm going off the playoff results with this ranking.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Matt.
If Wiggins is who we think he is, and I completely agree. I mean, we've been high on Wiggins and talking about him like all year pretty much. They're going to have, a legendary secondary next season. Nothing short of that. And they'll still have Roquan Smith, who is, a total game changer as a linebacker, and still have Matabuke. Like, yeah, they have some flaws. And this is what I'm talking about when I say, like, I had them at 4. Even when we start to get down to defenses that I think are in the top 5 running, or that I think just straight up are top 5, there's certain things you could point to and say, like, what if their pass rush falls apart? And that, like, really sinks them in some major way. So it's different than maybe like offenses where I don't necessarily feel that bad about like the 10th or 9th team, or I don't think the weakness is as strong. With the defenses, I think everybody, for the most part, has a pretty big area or pretty big soft spot that you could point to.
Yeah, I think it really comes down, when I was building out my list, I was kind of going just like count the good players. And then it's like, well, the Browns and the Jets have like 2 of the best players defensively in the NFL, and they've got the coach to go along with it. And the Ravens still have those like really great key pieces, Roquan, Hamilton. Obviously we're high on Wiggins. The thing that worried me the most was just losing McDonald. So
yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I think if they were to just if they are just going a straight 4-man rush, like, who is really winning outside of Matabike? Maybe Maybe Ojabo develops. But yeah, it's definitely up in the air what their pass rush is able to do next year. I rank them second, but that does make me nervous for sure.
Yep. So the Ravens are our third consensus. Our fourth consensus, right behind them. It was close. Matt and I actually had these guys at 3, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm still really high on the Chiefs defense. They lost Snead. That is a big loss. they are going to have to make up for that. But it definitely feels like they've got a lot of youth on this team and kind of guys still coming up and places where you could see some development. They were already really good last year. They did get back Chris Jones, which is like the number one thing I'm worried about. I still look at their linebacker unit. Getting Tranquil back is really big. Like, I think they have a lot of options with their linebackers. You still have an all-pro and McDuffie in that secondary. I think the safety play for the most part is good. Like, this is, one of the more well-balanced defenses in the NFL. Now, they could struggle again with the cornerback 2 slot and no Snead, and we'll see. And that's kind of just the nature of, continuing to be a really good team, is that eventually you're not going to be able to pay some guys. But I think they made the right decision. And I look around at the NFL and I ask myself, what team has the biggest hole that's opened up, or what good defenses last year have the biggest hole that opened up? And I'm looking at a really good defense that got it done in the playoffs, that kept almost everybody and is running back the same coordinator, Spagnuolo, who we really like. And I think, I don't know, this is probably going to be one of the top units again.
Yeah. I do worry about the boundary corner situation. I had them ranked, I think, 5th, so 1 spot lower than this. But, I mean, they've got all pros on the D-line. Nick Bolton, maybe he's not all pro, but he's not that far off to me. Like, he's a top 10 linebacker in the league. And then you've got McDuffie on the back end and an elite defensive coordinator. They had negative 0.07 EPA per play during the playoffs, which I think ranked 2nd of all the playoff teams. And it would have ranked 11th overall during the regular season, which is a pretty good number to be at, considering you played the Ravens, the 49ers, the Bills, and that's
you played like the 3 best offenses in the NFL.
Exactly. So the fact that they were able to, be a kind of have borderline top 10 defense results against that string of offenses lets you know, like, they were damn good in the playoffs. So yeah, at all 3 levels with Spags, when you've got talent, I think that they're going to be able to get it done. So I still had them in my top 5.
Yeah, I don't have any quarrels with anything said there. They kept Chris Jones. I mean, that's the big thing. You've got, as long as you've got like one of the big key pieces, just like with the Browns, just like what we talk about with the Jets, just like we talk about with the Ravens. As long as you've got guys that are going to ball out, you're probably going to be in a good position. And they have the coach, and that's why I ranked them ahead of the Ravens. The next team I was a little bit higher on than you guys were, and I'm probably the reason they're a little bit up here. The Dallas Cowboys came in at number 5. I know we're concerned about the run defense a little bit. We're concerned about the linebacker play. But one thing I'm not concerned about is their ability to create turnovers. They've got right. They still got Micah Parsons, who at this point is probably due for a defensive player of the year. He's, consistently having those caliber of seasons. They're having Trayvon Diggs return on top of Bland, who just had one of the most incredible defensive performance seasons in terms of, interceptions and scoring touchdowns we've ever seen. I think those two, you're gonna have a hard time of picking who to throw to. Again, you're concerned about the kind of the middle of that defense, but in terms of like the big playability, it's gonna be there for sure.
Will it be there 4 straight times in the playoffs?
See, that's the thing. You
have to take that into account. And here's the thing. I really, really believe that if you're saying, like, yes, this defense is the 5th best defense, but I think it's going to get torched in a playoff run, like almost guaranteed, it feels like, because they have great cornerbacks who are gamblers. And they're not like, I think the Browns maybe have some similar weaknesses as the Cowboys, but I think they're far, far worse for Dallas. Yeah. Like Dallas with the Mozzie Smith situation, like their defensive tackle play is really not moving me. And their linebackers last year, I mean, they just had to go incredibly, incredibly light. And that totally killed them at times. I think that Dallas is going to probably statistically be good. I think that, you play the Giants twice, you play Washington twice. Parsons is going to bother just about any quarterback. And you've got, two of the best interception artists at corner. Like it's going to be, when it's good, it's going to be really good. They might have like a 60-point game this year because they like find 3 turnovers against like a really pathetic
the Giants.
Like
yeah,
I wasn't going to name names.
it's
but yeah, them or Washington names. Maybe.
Yeah.
Or I don't know. Do they play Carolina? I'm nervous to say this now, but
no, Bryce Young will throw 5 touchdowns that game. Trust.
That'll be their game. The interceptions don't go their way. But that's my problem with them, is that there's going to be a game where it's like you lose those gambles. It's like I'd rather have guys who can just straight up shut people down. Like there is some truth to that. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that like Bland and Diggs are bad. They're not. But having like banking so much on the turnovers going your way is just fickle from game to game. You know, and I look at, for instance, the team that I had ranked above them, the 49ers. I'm taking San Francisco's defense, which I think is just more balanced and can hold up in ways that Dallas's can't, particularly with the linebacker play.
The linebacker play, I mean, San Francisco's like such a like night and day difference, like Fred Warner to, I mean, I don't who even is the starting linebacker in Dallas at this point. Is it
they got Eric Kendricks, who, in my opinion, is looking very washed for the Chargers last year, and I don't think it's the Mike Zimmer connection. He had to bring in his guy.
Yeah,
and that's the thing I like about the Cowboys is I think that Mike Zimmer is going to be a good coordinator for them. I mean, he was in our division for years and always gave Rodgers a lot of trouble. His defenses were great. They were amazing. They were the best in the league at times when he was in Minnesota. And I think that his mindset and his scheme is perfect for the current era, the simulated pressures, the blitzes. That's what's getting it done. And that's what he brings to the table. So I agree with you, Matt, where I think the results are going to be there. I think results wise, they could be a top 5 defense when you look at EPA, when you look at DVOA, because they're going to get sacks and they're going to get turnovers.
That's where they were last year.
But again, like you said as well, Matt, like, is it going to matter? Because you run into a Shanahan team and they just cook the Cowboys every single time.
Because they just run through the A gap and you're toast,
once you run downhill, then Mozzie Smith is a huge bust. There's not much. Odighizu is a good pass rusher, but he's like 280 pounds or something like that. That is my concern.
Yeah, it is worth noting. Like they were 4th in EPA last year defensively. They were 22nd in success rate.
Yeah, interesting.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty stark. Like, and honestly, I think philosophically, like I had them at 6 because I don't want to like push them too low. But philosophically, if you told me that there's like 10 defenses you would rather have than the Cowboys because you just feel like they're not going to hold up, versus again like a Shanahan type, like a team that can really run at them, and you know that's going to happen to you in the playoffs, like it's kind of hard for me to argue about against that if you really want to be a contender. So I have very mixed feelings about them. I also think that if the Cowboys
but how many teams really fit that bill, where you're like,
and that's why I had them at 6. I tried to put them high because there's some teams that are questionable, but like I don't know.
Like I feel like if there's a lot. I think once you get past like those top 3 that we looked at, Browns, Jets, Chiefs, where you feel pretty safe that those defenses are probably going to get stuff done. Even the Browns, like part of the reason the Browns fell apart in the playoffs is they were banged up, right? I feel like once you get past there, all of those defenses have some flaws, and at least with the Cowboys, you feel like they have a big enough superpower that there's a chance they could overcome.
But the counter to that is that their flaw is like really bad and probably will be bad again. And like we basically aren't even discussing whether or not it's going to be like significantly better. I guess the idea for like them being like even cooler is that now they'll have like Bland playing like he did last year and Diggs, and maybe that just makes them, like one of the greatest turnover teams ever, with Parsons like putting
you might just be able to run just man blitz every play. I mean,
Zimmer would do it too. Zimmer would do it.
But when we're talking about like
they do play the Panthers, by the way.
Yeah, so I mean, like they're gonna win a game like 63-13, or 63-9.
No touchdowns from
63-9.
Yeah, they're going to be kicking field goals. But I don't know. It's like I look at a Ravens team and I'm like, okay, maybe the pass rush doesn't hold up. But if it does, that is going to be an incredibly good playoff defense. If the Cowboys are an elite turnover team, they probably still in the playoffs have a game where it doesn't break their way and a team just really wants to run on them and it doesn't work out. Again, I had them at 6, but there's a balance of those two things. And I could see you being like way low on them because you're scared about what they do in the playoffs.
I had them at 7.
They're also cursed.
That's also true. That can't be understated. They are cursed.
Right. So who did we end up having at what are we on?
The consensus, the consensus number 6 team was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I honestly thought about moving them higher. I think they are
I had them at 4.
You had them at 4. I thought about moving them pretty high, Theo. They are kind of underrated because they kind of have guys at all levels. You know, in the secondary, they've got Joey Porter and Minkah Fitzpatrick. They, of course, got TJ Watt. The rest of the defensive line is still pretty good. I always forget that Cam Hayward is still in the league. The guy's like
he's not a media member. I see him on like Good Morning Football all the time, and he's looking like old. Man. He's looking like older than all the other hosts.
He's ancient.
He's the current player. League. He's the current.
Shout out to him, man.
Shout out to him. And they just got Patrick Queen, who is coming off a pretty career year with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I don't know if he's going to have the same level of success because he doesn't have Roquan next to him anymore. But I still think it's going to be a plus addition for them. I think they're going to be a pretty formidable group.
They're great outside of Dante Jackson starting at corner for them. That's the only problem. I know it's bad. The other corner spot next to Joey Porter Jr.
Yeah,
is the one
but that's why Minkah will just shade to that side.
Please, Minkah, he needs to stay healthy. But yeah, I rank the Steelers at number 4. I think that this front 7 is pretty nice. I love Ogunjobi. I think Keanu Benton is going to pop off next year. He really flashed as a rookie. They still got Cam Hayward. They got TJ Watt. They got Alex Highsmith. They got Patrick Queen. And I'm a big Landon Roberts fan as well. He's a former Patriots linebacker.
That's a good sign.
He's a nice player. Yes, it is a good sign. And he's just solid, like a lot of Patriots linebackers are. Like, he'll actually take on contact. He can cover. So I think we slept on them a little bit when we did our top units episode, because this front 7, now that they have Queen and Roberts, and they drafted Peyton Wilson, who I'm not the highest on, but still, it's fast.
The front 7 is
pretty damn nice.
It is pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Maybe I was underrating them in my ranking. I had them at 10. I did have them in there, but not quite as high.
But that
TJ
balances
is
out
just
at
so
6,
consistently productive, and if you believe that Micah is going to bounce back, I mean, he's just one of those like ultimate game changers as well. So to have 2 on the same defense and a pretty filled out defense, because maybe I'm worrying about the cornerback play like it's last year, when really it's like Porter has obviously proven himself to be a real NFL player. Dante Jackson is bad though.
He is.
For the record, I mean as a Panthers fan, I've told you guys this story. There's a guy, shout out to him on Twitter, Panthers Culture, who has been calling Dante Jackson 26 instead of his name for probably the last 2 years.
That's so disrespectful.
So it's not. Yeah. He's not my favorite.
I guess they were 10th last year, so it's not like you're crazy. They were 10th in EPA, total EPA. They were 10th in EPA per play, 9th in success rate. Just a very, it's the Steelers. They're consistent. They're maybe not elite, but they're good.
Yeah, they were. They were a top 10 defense last year, and maybe they'll be better.
Like you said, Blaiden, earlier, just count the good players. I just found it very easy to go through this defense and be like, that guy's good, 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 that guy's good. There's 2 elite players
for sure.
So if I'd like to see them make a trade, I know they already traded for Dante Jackson, but like if at the deadline, like a good corner becomes available, they should look to complete the defense and add him.
Whenever Pat Surtain decides he's ready to get out of Denver.
They
They haven't absolutely, because I'm thinking about that Dante Jackson trade now. Totally off topic, but I'm looking at their depth chart. Their wide receiver room is absolutely insane. It's some really great name soup. You got Pickens, of course, but then it's Van Jefferson, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, Quez Watkins, Scotty Miller, Marquez Callaway, Stay Hot Legends.
Oh my.
And I was reading those off in order on the depth chart according to ESPN, although they don't really know anything. So,
the receiver,
Patrick.
The Steelers, I have no idea. Well. Like we're about to do our division predictions here soon. I have no idea where I'm gonna put the Steelers, man.
9-8, baby. It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
I have an idea of what I'm gonna say. I love their defense, though. I mean, if Arthur Smith can get them to, like, if he's OC Arthur Smith and not head coach Arthur Smith, I do like the Steelers.
If their passing game can just be all right, if it can just be serviceable.
Yeah, if this is a group of horrible wide receivers.
Yeah, they've got they've got a really bad receiving room right now, man. It does not look good.
I don't think Ayuk is on the way either. I mean, the one thing about the Steelers, though, their receiving room may not look very good, but they are extremely good at developing wide receivers. I feel like they just pull it doesn't have to be a first round pick. Like everybody that they take, it just kind of works.
When did we stop thinking that Van Jefferson is an elite wide receiver too, is my question.
This is a good question. 20 receptions, 209 yards, 0 touchdowns.
Hold on,
by the way.
That's like what?
Didn't he get traded? So
10 yards
the Rams
per catch?
and was he a Falcon?
Evil Arthur Smith taking away touches from Van Jefferson to appease Kyle Pitt's fantasy maniacs.
I believe that both in LA and Atlanta, he had no... He was all set to be like the main boundary receiver in like both places, and he still did nothing. So,
shout out to him though.
Yeah,
two catch 13-yard performance, 3 catch 19-yard performance. Hold on, 1 catch 13 yards.
What did he do in the Super Bowl?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
He had a good performance, right?
He had a good game because Odell went out, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had like 1 big catch over the middle. I could be so wrong about that. But I feel like it's not impossible.
He had 4 catches for 23 yards.
Hey,
okay.
That's
okay.
That's a lot of PPR.
That might be his career high, honestly.
I remember he had his kid
named him
right as the game ended, and then there was that viral clip of him telling his other kids that they had to go leave because Mom was in the hospital. It was a great day.
He named his kid Champ.
Shout out to him. Yeah, I think so. I could be making that up.
He got a son and a Super Bowl on the same night. That's
what are the odds?
It's pretty elite. So he did win the night. He did win the night. But
anyway, what's our 7th ranked defense?
How did we get onto Van Jefferson?
We were talking about the Steelers.
Yeah, so the 7th ranked defense we have as the San Francisco 49ers, who, Theo, I know you've been waiting to talk about them. Matt, you had them at 5. I had them at 6. Theo, where did you have them ranked?
I had them as an honorable mention. I'm sorry, everybody.
Ooh.
Outside your top 10.
I'm sorry.
I think it's a little woke.
It might be a little woke, but
woke.
Fake woke.
Fake woke take.
Hold on. Well, how about you guys talk about how awesome that they are first?
I mean,
I build my case.
Yeah, I think I know what your case is going to be, but the main thing for me is, again, you look at who their best players are, and they have Bosa, and they have Fred Warner, and they have Fong. Like the great players on this team are game changers, almost all of them. So it's just hard to imagine a world where you're able to find a way to even if you're able to find ways to exploit the few weaknesses they have. I feel like the great players on this team are still going to be able to just make enough plays to make up for it.
I mean, was this not a very good defense last year? I'm seeing arguably the best front seven in the NFL. I don't think that's a crazy take at all.
They were a good defense last year. They were 10th in EPA. They were 15th in success rate. Against the run, they were a little really underwhelming. Bad. Yeah. But they really also didn't face a lot of running teams because they were always leading. So
we forgive them.
Yeah, you can get forgiven for that. But it's like worth noting that they weren't nearly as dominant as you would expect.
Well, remember they had all those sack issues in the first half of the season before the bye. I didn't like Steve Wilkes's plan. There were too many times where I saw there was a play. I was just watching them against the Cardinals. I saw a play where Nick Bosa was lined up in the A gap, mugged up, and he was up against the Cardinals left guard Colon or something, number 63, and Nick Bosa's standing up right on him, and you're like, oh man, this is about to be bad for Colon. And then Bosa looped all the way around, and it took him 4 seconds to get there. And it's why didn't you just have him rush the worst player on the offensive line straight up? Why did you mug him to loop him all the way around? But Steve Wilkes is gone, right? That's but remember that was the kind of thing that was happening last year. And that's why they're ranked 10th in EPA per play and 15th in success rate, like you were saying, Blaiden. Plus the run game wasn't that good. After the bye, they started to lock in a little bit more.
Right, and that's what I remember. And then I do have some concerns like Dre Greenlaw coming off an Achilles.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Super Bowl, I don't even know if he'll be back for. I haven't really read up on it, to be completely honest with you.
Well, there's no way. An Achilles,
right?
Week one,
some players have come close to being starting quarterback by ready for the playoffs a little in season. Actually, Cam Akers did come back, and he actually did play in the playoffs. It's really not that insane. I don't know where Greenlaw is, but even if he comes back, it's how effective is he going to be? However, they did add Campbell, and they still have Warner, and Bosa's still there. I see the top guys. They're going to get Hufanga back. Ward was very, very good last year. I think they're mostly sound unit. It's they did lose Chase Young, but they got Floyd. It feels like, okay, you have another productive pass rusher on that other side now. I don't know. I think they're one of the more well put together with good top end guys and overall pretty solid balance. And I agree that a lot of their problems last year with the Wilkes stuff, it's okay, well, he's not defensive coordinator anymore, so I'm not going to be low on them for that reason.
Yeah, I can see it. And Fred Warner and Bosa are just so good, especially Warner, where he'll just have games where he takes over the entire game. You try to run up the middle, it doesn't go anywhere because Fred Warner is there. You try to run on the sideline, it doesn't go anywhere. You try to throw over the middle, it doesn't go anywhere because Fred Warner is there. He's the caliber of player that makes this defense have a very high floor. But I can't quite ignore how bad they were against the run, and now they've lost Chase Young and Eric Armstead. I'm a little bit worried that could become a real problem for them very quickly, where yes, they have Warner, but there's no Greenlaw anymore. There's no Armstead, or there's no Greenlaw for a bit. There's no Armstead. Chase Young, probably a little bit better against the run than Floyd. Could they be one of the worst teams at it for stretches next year? I could see it. Their second cornerback spot weak as well. They had Ambry Thomas get really picked on during the playoffs. And then they replaced him in the Super Bowl. And this offseason, I'm looking at the depth chart now, he's still there. I don't know about that. They got Arizona State legend Chase Lucas, though. Shout out to him. We'll see. Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa and Hufanga coming back makes the secondary maybe a little bit better if Brown can develop or Mustafa is a positive. But just, again, last year they were a little bit underwhelming. Their defensive coordinator isn't Wilkes anymore, but it's still a first-time DC, right? He's probably not going to be an elite one right away. And they're a little bit underwhelming last year, and they lost some talent. So that's why I put them at honorable mention. I think I think the defense could become a bit of a problem point for the 49ers next
Even in
year,
the
more than
second
it has
half
been
of
in
the
the past.
season, their overall EPA was 16th, success rate
Really?
19th. They were better against the pass, it looks like, and the run defense really took a hit.
Just
like
totally fell off.
I mean, they were like bottom 10 against the run the second half of the year, it looks like. So
I do think it's going to be a big problem. I do. I didn't know
they
it
weren't
got
as
that
bad as like Seattle or Philly, like during that stretch, because those were like the worst defenses in football. But they aren't quite as dominant. I don't know. I do think that they faced some injuries last year with Greenlaw and Hufanga, and I think getting those guys back is gonna help out. It's gonna help out.
Greenlaw, they faced that injury for
that was what the Super Bowl.
half.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bad half for their defense.
You don't want to lose them. So maybe that is like a risk, but I think having just the top end guys, I can't imagine that defense not being at least
Ward
good.
is really good as well.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the last year of him.
It's weird. It's like, they've got Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and you feel good about
a defensive coordinator and switch in talent being the difference here. I'm just struggling to see the defense that has two guys like Bosa and Warner. I mean, having an edge one like that, and it's like it feels like the sack stuff is probably only going to maybe this is progression to the mean talk, and I usually hate that, but not when it agrees with something I'm saying. But to be fair, I honestly did not. I didn't think that the 49ers were that bad against the run last year. I knew they weren't great, but I didn't think it was that big of a problem for them. And it is something to watch out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to bite them. But they were 6th in dropback EPA last year, behind the Jets, Cowboys, Chiefs, Ravens, and Browns. And it definitely feels like they could still be in that tier against the pass, which is probably the more, if you had to be good at one thing, I'd rather be good against the pass, and they'll still be good against that. So we'll see if they can find some run defense somewhere.
So.
Yeah, they were. So we'll see if they can find some run defense somewhere, but just that's enough of a weakness where I'm like, I'm a little hesitant to rank them top 10 because I just don't know how that gets way better.
It's close enough that I could see the path for if Seattle were to really get their shit on track offensively.
Stop. Hey, don't say something you might regret.
I'm just saying, Geno regression to the mean, the offensive line's healthy.
This podcast is going to have a conversation about Seattle and a few episodes here. When we get to our NFC West stuff, we might, there's looming discourse is all I'm saying.
We need to say what we want to say about Seattle.
We do need to say what's on our mind here. But that brings us to the number 8 team on our consensus ranking, the Houston Texans. I'll say this much. I've been talking about the Colts a lot and how much I love their defensive line. I did not have the Colts ranked above the Texans on my personal list because the Texans are better everywhere else. So
they got Stingley, and he was popping off last year. If he could stay healthy and put together an all-pro type season, it wouldn't surprise me. And I like their draft. I like Kamari Lassiter. I liked their free agent pickups, not Greenlaw. They lost Grenard.
Yeah.
They got Danielle Hunter.
Grenard with Hunter,
who was even more potent as a pass rusher last year. I had them a little bit lower than this, but they do kind of have the infinite upside because who knows how good Stingley and Anderson could be when they reach their primes, which could be as soon as next year.
Statistically, last year would be my question.
Last year they were 14th. Last year they were 14th overall in EPA per play, and they were 9th in success rate. So kind of borderline. And they did add Grenard, and they did. And oh my goodness, this is kicking my ass. Who they lost and who they gained. They got Hunter. They got Danico Autry. They got Kamari Lassiter. So it could very easily
another year of Anderson development and another year of Stingley development. And we know D'Amico Ryans is one of the best that there is. I had them at 7, but I feel like 8 or 9 It would be a disappointment if they weren't a top 10 defense. They project to be, I think, absolutely. This is a very well-rounded unit now with somebody very strong leading the charge and high level, or guys who should be super high level dudes in Stingley and Anderson is like sort of their top players. Their pass rush should be phenomenal next year. It really should.
And it was really good
linebacker play. Yeah.
And it was a really good pass rushing unit last year. When I was looking up numbers for the Colts, the Colts were top 5 in pass rush and run stop win rate. The Texans were top 3, right? I mean, they were great at all. So the EPA and the success rate weren't like ridiculous last year, but they were still getting wins, right? They just weren't, this super productive defense, but they were still creating.
They needed another body in the secondary is what they needed. And that's what I kept saying was, look, this is one of the best pass rushes in the league, but they're still 14th in EPA. Like, why is that happening? It's because they needed better someone outside of Stingley. And Stingley himself wasn't great from beginning to end, so.
No, it was like that second half of the season where he really turned it on.
So I put them at number 10. I should have put them higher because I think
I had them at 8 or 9. So.
And I got to remember, I'm a big Lassiter fan. I think that he was one of the sleepers of the draft in the second round. So maybe I got to put more faith in my guy and say that was the second coverage body that they needed because he's good at everything. He's just slow. He's just slow. It mostly shows up not even when he's covering, but let's say he has to detach from his coverage and go make a tackle. That's when there are some plays that I really can't defend from him. But in coverage, I'm hoping that
I don't know. I mean, I don't think being slow is the worst crime you can commit as a DB because Jordan Battle's kind of slow, but Jordan Battle's gonna start this year. That's all I'm saying.
No,
man.
He started last year and then he got replaced.
No, man. He's gonna be good this year. Trust.
There is no way you just said Jordan Battle.
Jordan Battle. Trust.
I feel like Jordan Battle's slowness actively hurt them last year because
it is his biggest detriment. But in terms of reacting to plays that are happening on the field, he's about as good as it gets.
There's just got to be a better example than Jordan Battle.
There does have to be a better example.
I mean, Kyle Hamilton ran a slow 40, but
there we go.
But Kyle Hamilton is on field fast. It doesn't show. His slow 40 doesn't show up on tape, so it's not a good example.
Lassiter might be cooked if we could only think of Jordan Battle as the shining hope.
Competition is Von Bell, by the way. I'm in the Buckeye hat right now, man. So I know how that's going.
I think the better example to say you don't have to be that fast to be a great coverage player is just looking at him at Georgia because he had the best passer rating allowed in the SEC.
Or you could look at Jordan Battle at Alabama, man.
No, I think you just look at Lassiter and his resume because if he ran a 4.4 and the tape was almost the same, he would have definitely been a first round pick. But at
also,
any rate,
Theo, I could be very wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Jordan Battle did not start most of the beginning of the year, and then he came in the end of the year and played great.
Okay, maybe I'm getting my. I just know safety.
All I know is that the Bengals went into last year with Dax Hill and Nick Scott as their starting safeties, and they're going into this year with Dax Hill moved back to corner and Nick Scott is not on the team.
That's very true.
I think
they signed Bell for cheap.
That's all I'm saying. Trust in Jordan Battle this year. The Bengals are not on my list, by the way, but
no, neither are they on mine. But the Texans. Going back to the Texans, maybe I should have them ranked a little bit higher. We'll see how high the star power can take them, and because I do think when you kind of go down the roster, I definitely got to the point where I was like, okay, who's the fourth best player on this defense? Because we've got Anderson, we've got Stingley, right? Hunter. And then like after that, like, do they have the entire defensive ecosystem to go really, really high like people expect them to over a team like maybe I didn't have this team on there, but like the Patriots are maybe more well-rounded. It'll be interesting to see if the Texans round out or if the Stars are just that good or maybe they lack a little bit of depth. I think there's a kind of a wide range of outcomes with the Texans right now, but they're definitely talented.
Yeah. You need the Stars to almost turn into like the Madden X Factors. You need them to get their X Factor ability this year.
Yeah, and you need growth from Petrie and Harris. I think that's kind of where I come down. Like Petrie,
they both played well last year, though.
Yeah, Petrie, he has his moments, but like he's such a bad tackler, and like he's a bit of a gambler as well. I feel like where he can just kind of fly to the wrong spot, maybe sometimes. And then Harris the same way, like very athletic, definitely improved under D'Amico, but the place that he started from was just so low. Like he was just one of the worst linebackers, didn't know what was going on. Still had some bad moments last year, but started to improve. Like, are those guys gonna fully blossom next season, or are they gonna be the same level as they were last year? I think that's where this defense will really be made or break. Does too.
I'm seeing a lot more green than red here is all I'm saying. I think from an individual level, I mean, it's like we kind of believe in a lot of the single guys here. We believe in Ryans. We believe in, Anderson and Stingley, and maybe Petrie doesn't work out, but like if you're a big Lassiter fan and there's Shire there and Autry, it's like, it starts to stack up. It feels like they added a lot. And it's not like they were an above average,
definitely
above average defense last year. So I think it's wise to be high on them. I feel like that should be the expectation. And if it goes wrong, it's not that like I incorrectly like predicted it. It's that they did something wrong.
They did something wrong.
Right.
Yeah, it's their fault.
So that's how people should be looking at the Texans going into next season, or at least their defense.
Yeah. I think it's. Yeah, I put them at 10. I think that's a good spot for them.
Yeah.
We'll
I had
see
them at 9, and Matt, I think you had them at 7. So nice little balance we got here. At the number 9 spot, our consensus, we have the Miami Dolphins. This is a team we've talked about where if they are healthy, they can probably go toe-to-toe with anyone on any side of the ball. The main thing they lost defensively is Christian Wilkins. They also lost Baker. Right at middle.
Yeah, but they replaced him with
I think they upgraded at linebacker.
Brooks.
Who did they?
Yeah, Brooks.
Oh, that's right. They got Jordan Brooks. I forgot about
Arguably,
that. Yeah. No, that is
the
definitely
best
an
player
upgrade.
on a defense.
He was the best player on
Some
Seattle's
would say.
defense last year. Some would say, but I think I think they could be really, really good. But again, they've got a team that could end up being Mr. Glass on offense and defense. They were shredded along their defensive line, especially with their edge rushers last year. But if everyone's healthy, they've got Jalen Ramsey, they've got Holland, they've got Poyer, they've got Brooks. They could be lethal.
I'm really interested in their linebackers of Long and Brooks. I think that could be pretty strong. I think, Ramsey and Holland, adding Poyer, even though he's older, like gives you some real juice in the secondary. Losing Wilkins stinks. But they did add, they did add some other guys, down there, like,
Calais Campbell they added, and he
Campbell,
wasn't.
who should be
Not
solid. And they've got some
but-
more pass rushers to kind of help out with some of that injury stuff. Like they did draft Chop Robinson. Who is more of a situational guy, but we like. And they still have Sealer down there as well.
No doubt, yeah.
However, one thing that has made me a little bit more nervous about the Dolphins, and maybe we were talking about last time, is like, if the edge rushers are healthy, they're good, but really it's a complete wild card exactly how good they're going to be. Robinson we like, but he's a rookie. Phillips is coming off of an Achilles tear, right?
Yep.
And that's a massive injury.
There were a lot of Achilles tears last year.
Yes, there was. I'm really interested to see how they play out, like how good these guys are coming back.
I didn't even think about that.
And then Chubb is coming off an ACL, and they have Shaq Barrett as well.
Oh yes, I forgot about that signing.
So like it's kind of going to be a mixed bag there, and it feels like it's definitely going to be better than it was at the end of last year. But I could see like Phillips comes back and he's not right, and Chop is like, just too one-dimensional, especially as like a rookie, and maybe Chubb's like I could see the injuries catching up with them a little bit. And I still wonder if like their depth at corner isn't that great. Like I have some, and like how the defensive tackle stuff plays out. Like Campbell is like, like we love him here, but like he's getting up there, man. And they're like really
he's almost as old
as
Cam Hayward at this point.
It's probably older.
He might be.
I mean, the thing about the Dolphins is just, are they the sum of their parts? Because last year they kind of felt like they weren't. Like they didn't have any They didn't have any eye-popping statistical finishes last year, I feel like, overall, even though their pass rush was very good. I'm looking at it now. They were first in the league in pressures last year. First with Phillips and Wilkins and Sealer and Chubb. And that makes sense. Like, that's a baller-ass defensive line. Like, that's about as good as it gets. But yet still, despite the fact that they were first in pressures, they were 15th in overall EPA per play. So it's like, I still love their front four. I still think like if Phillips comes back and Chubbs comes back and Sealer's still there, like Brooks is a blitzer, like they can get, maybe they don't finish first in pressures, but they should still be a top 5 pressure team with those two at edge and with Sealer. But last year they weren't the sum of their parts. So what will they be this year? That's my question. But Ramsey was hurt for a lot of it, and then when he came back, he was pretty much locked down. The defense improved a lot with his presence. And then they're adding Chop, which, will that be a major positive with him as a first-round pick? I don't know, but I do feel good that they did that to alleviate some of the strain on the 2 edge rushers coming in off of injury. So I like them. I think they can be top 10. They threw a bunch of shade at Fangio on the way out, so maybe there just wasn't a lot of chemistry, and maybe that's why, like, they feel like they underwhelmed too.
Really
so maybe
disliked him.
Yeah, so maybe with they brought over a guy from the Ravens, like maybe that'll be a boost for them. I could easily see it, because considering where they finished with the talent that they have, it's tough to see them getting a whole lot lower than that, unless like they really can't replace Wilkins or something like that, or like the pass rush just completely falls off. So
I mean,
I like the Dolphins, but
you said Theo as like for the whole year they were like about average in EPA and success rate, but in that second half of the year, once Ramsey came back, they were top 10. So but the question is like, I mean, how many guys in their defense don't have a bad injury history?
At this point, it is a little bit concerning.
Is it like, does Holland have an injury history? I feel like no.
I don't think he has a major one, and Holland is a beast. Holland is an absolute
Holland's really
monster.
good, but outside of him, it's like every other good player is. It's like ACL.
Holland did miss some time last year.
Did he?
But he's also played he's played pretty consistently.
Okay.
Yeah, he's played 16, 17, 12. So that's not so bad.
Okay.
Nah.
I mean, for the Dolphin standards, that's about as good as you're going to get.
It's Mikael Bridges.
But that brings us to number 10, and then we'll get into some honorable mentions here as well.
I think my ranking of one team might carry this number 10 spot. My prediction. But who is it?
I don't know if you had this team on your list at all, Theo. The number 10 team is the New England Patriots.
How many honorable mentions did you have, Theo?
Well,
no Patriots at all.
I should have put down the Patriots. I did 3.
I'm not hating, because I did the same thing with some teams where I'm like, damn, I should have put them down.
The Patriots. Well, I submitted my top 10, and then Blaiden asked for honorable mentions, and I was just like gave 3 teams, and I could have thought more about my honorable mentions.
That's fair. I just did. I mean, you just sent 10, and like Matt sent 12, so I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know if you just like left them off.
Because I've looked at these sheets. Some Blaiden, and you in particular, sometimes you'll go to like the 15th team. It's like that's starting to.
I don't know, man. I just want to give respect where it's mostly because I like there will be a team where I don't think they're top 10, but I want to talk about them, so I put them down just so I don't forget.
Fair enough. But this Patriots defense was good last year. I think this is being on a terrible team tax, and they get Christian Gonzalez back, who we think is totally awesome.
Yeah,
and we're right. He is totally awesome. And they get
We are
Judon
right.
back.
we are right.
So it's like, dude, that seems to me like, I mean, 2 humongous ads right there. I know Belichick's gone, but it's guys who have, you know, I don't think they're going to stop being the Patriots, even with Belichick gone. And it seems like they're honestly doing a lot in their power to remain the Patriots. And I just kind of believe in the roster and the depth chart here as well. This isn't some years you look at it and you're like, I guess Bill's going to make this work. This isn't it, man. This is mostly really good guys. I mean,
it's a lot of the same guys they had last year.
Yeah,
right?
It's a lot of the same guys.
Barmore's coming off of a really good. Barmore's coming off of a really good year. Judon's coming back. He missed most of last year, so they're getting their best pass rusher back. Their linebackers are pretty good. Uche's a solid guy. Their secondary is loaded, honestly. Theo, you might have been right about Peppers. I might have.
I should have put this team in my top. Why didn't I put it in the top 10?
Like they've got, with Judah, they lack kind of like a true, like crazy pass rusher, but Judon's had good production before, and
Barmore's pretty damn good.
Barmore's really good.
I'm talking.
Barmore was an honorable mention on my defensive line list.
Mm-hmm.
I had them at 8, so I'm talking like, why are they not higher? And it's like teams above them are like the Steelers, who have a TJ Watt, or the Niners, who have a Joey Bosa. But I like Judon, and I think Uche has a lot of juice, even though I don't think he had like crazy production last year. So I don't know. Overall, I think they're pretty well balanced. And they were productive last year, and they added some really serious players that I'm super excited about. So they should have a fantastic.
They also have
even if they're probably
Cleveland Browns legend Sione Takitaki at linebacker.
Demon Takitaki is changing things.
Look, they've got a couple guys here on this second team list that who knows if they'll actually end up being second team. But Anfernee Jennings is one of the best run defenders in the entire league, I'd say. Marte Mapu is a positionless guy that they drafted, and he's a good second level kind of linebacker, safety, hybrid dude. I like him a lot. Dietrich Wise Jr. Is getting kind of pushed out a little bit, but if he's on your bench, like that's pretty crazy. So yeah, it's a defense that I was sleeping on, not even putting them in my honorable mentions, which is weird because usually I like the Patriots. And I believe in their succession plan. I do. I think that it's going to be the last great Belichick moment is that he left a good succession plan. Like I do believe in Mayo. I think that if that was their plan, I trust that plan because, the offense has been horrible. Belichick as a GM, it has not been good. But he did not lose his fastball on defense. So I think if he stamped a certain player to be like, this is the guy after I'm gone, and that's understood, like I trust him to get that right. And now they have May, and now they have Elliott Wolf. So I do think the Patriots are building a playoff team, and I think the defense is already there. I guess I don't know what I was worried about. I guess the high end star power, but
it's like
so
they don't have they don't have a superstar on their defense yet. But Gonzalez will probably be that guy. He was gearing towards that until he got hurt. And then, Barmore was great last year, and they're going to have Judon back. So I think they're going to be really good. Matt, I had them at 8 too, and I almost put them substantially higher. But I was just
I feel you.
But again, they don't have like the X factor, right? They don't have like a total. They don't have a Nick Bosa. They don't have a Minkah Fitzpatrick, a guy like that. So that's the consensus top 10. Some honorable mentions. The New Orleans
There's one team
Saints,
I had crazy high that did not get mentioned.
that we haven't talked about. Oh,
yeah,
you're right, Theo. So the Saints were one of our honorable mentions. They were a team that we all kind of mentioned. I think Theo, you had them as an honorable mention. Actually, I think we all just had them as like a borderline top 10 defense. But the team that Theo had really high that did not get mentioned was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yes,
Theo,
I like
you
the
had
Buccaneers
them at 6.
next year. I know. That's probably too high. That's probably too high.
Maybe switch the Bucs and the Patriots and
then move everyone down a spot. I could see that. I love the Buccaneers defense though. I think that they are, first of all, they've got the star power. They've got Vea. They've got Antoine Winfield Jr., two of the best players at their position. Levante David, I'll believe it when the wheels fall off. I still think that he's one of the best linebackers in the league. I don't know how. He's so old, but like we talk about Bobby Wagner and how washed he is all the time. Like Levante David is the same age, and he's like locking Sam Laporta up in man coverage. He's like just making plays all over the field. He's amazing. So it's like, okay, at this point, I'll just believe it when I see it that he's bad.
Right.
So that kind of checks the all three levels thing. I like Izzy in a lot. Their nickel guy. I like Kalijah Kancey. I didn't think that I would. I thought he might get run on, but he was actually just majorly good as a rookie last year when he came in. I think that I'm excited to watch a full season of that guy playing because he was a big plus and a perfect complement to Vita Vea's skill set. Just overall, they were a playoff team and I thought they held up well in the playoffs. Obviously, they beat the Eagles, made it a very good game against the Lions. So I was high on this defense, but I probably ranked them a little bit too high when I look at this roster next to like the Patriots. But Yaya Diaby, like he was kind of a sleeper dark horse defensive rookie of the year candidate.
Their defense is
out of there.
Their defense is interesting because it's kind of stars and scrubs, or maybe like stars and scrubs and sleepers. Because like you've got
stars and sleepers,
like I don't. Because you've got the big three on that defense, and you're right, Theo. Those guys are outstanding, but then the rest of the guys, it's like, well, this guy was kind of nice outside, but like outside of Kancey, there isn't like, I don't know. There just doesn't feel like a whole lot of
on this sleeper with a well.
The Steelers are kind of a stars and sleepers offense. As Jefferson, you just never know.
A Steelers fan would agree with that statement.
But I don't know. We've been going through the rankings and where everybody finished. They were 8th in success rate last year. They were 11th in EPA per play. So this was I'm looking at 2022 and 2023. Hold on.
Wait, you can. Oh yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, you can do that. All right, that's actually carried a little bit by 2022. So ignore me.
I don't know. They do have some good guys, and like a step from Kancey could mean improvement, but I don't think they're going to be a top 10 group. I could see them as like they're a fair honorable mention, and I think that kind of balances out with, Matt and I not having them listed at all.
Yes.
The next honorable mention team we had, also a little bit carried by Theo, is the Chicago Bears. I assume this is faith in their secondary.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they got good linebackers. They got a really good secondary. I think that Tyreek Stevenson and Jalen Johnson is about as good of a corner duo as you'll find outside of New York. And not a huge fan of their front four. No. But I do think that the linebackers and secondary, kind of the same way as the Ravens, can pull a lot of the weight there.
They can. I would prefer building a defense like
through the front four.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I was going to say like back to front, but I feel like front to back like might make more sense there.
Yeah, from the front to the back, yeah.
Yeah. Front four, back end. Yeah. So front to back as opposed to back to front. That would be just kind of the way that I would do it. But I agree, like the secondary is going to be great, and they've got some solid linebackers. There's a lot of teams that we put in our top 10s here that have terrible linebackers. The next team in our honorable mentions is the Detroit Lions, who, Matt, I feel like you have a lot of faith in them with their secondary taking a step.
Yeah, I think I like Arnold enough to feel like they've seriously upgraded there, and Carlton Davis and whatnot. I think they did a good job taking a few swings, and really the DJ Reader move I'm incredibly high on, and I think everybody is like a little bit lower on that than they should be, and I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what that is, because even like 1 year ago, it feels like DJ Reader was like the man. Everybody loved him. Like the casual fan who's just kind of like on Twitter really liked them. Like the film dudes really loved them. And maybe I'm biased because I'm in Cincinnati, but like what happened exactly?
He just got hurt, and he
kind of got banged up, and he's like 29. He's like around.
He's
like
30. He just turned 30 on July 1st. So happy birthday, DJ Reader. So just turning
like,
30 and being hurt.
They got him for like cheap too, and we see defensive tackles stay productive, especially guys who are, it's like, you know, their run defense is really popping off, or they're like the big part of their game. I feel like can sometimes stay productive for longer. So I think that paired with McNeil, paired with Hutchinson, gives them like a really tough like run defending front three or front four or group right there. And I think if their secondary takes a big step, they could be kind of in that, like, you know, not top 10 but above average range, and that's where I've got them.
Yeah, they've got some decent players. They definitely do. I think that they should take a massive jump from where they were last year. I mean, they were like a bottom 5 defense just because their secondary was so bad. But when you stack up all the talent on this team now, and you think like, okay, the secondary's definitely gotten a bit better with 2 new starters. It could be way better.
Yeah. So that's pretty much that simple. Again, I think when we start getting into like the 12th or the 13th or, you know, like kind of that range of defenses, we're kind of just looking for like, do you have some strong units, and like, do you have like a weakness that isn't a total disaster? And I feel like the answer for the Lions is yes. I also think that their numbers are going to look incredibly, I don't know if incredibly bad, probably not great playing the Bears and the Packers, who are 2 very good offenses twice a year, but I guess the Vikings.
I tried to ignore that.
Back. Yeah, well, I'm just saying from like a statistics standpoint, so I wouldn't be, you know, surprised if they finished like, you know, like 16 or whatever, and it's like, okay, that's probably about fair. But I do think they're a much improved unit from last year, and I wanted to give them some respect for that. That's really why I had them on here. Yeah,
I think the same deal is true with the Packers, who I had as an honorable mention as well, where when you look at their units, you can't really see a major weakness. Like now that they have Xavier McKinney, they drafted 3 safeties. Stokes is fully healthy this training camp. So it's like, okay, the secondary looks good. They drafted out of Texas A&M a new linebacker, Edgerrin James, to put next to Quay Walker, and then their front 4, right? Clark, Gary, Wyatt, Preston Smith. Like, there's no weaknesses there. It's just they were so undisciplined last year. They were stunting out of gaps and not replacing them with anybody. Their run defense has been so horrible under Joe Barry, and their defensive coordinator situation has been bad for such a long time, where it's like, will they ever get this figured out? But like on paper, like there's no reason why they can't kind of finish in the 10 to 15 range, I think. But I've always said that about the Packers.
Yeah. I thought about the Packers because you're kind of right, Theo. On paper, they've got it, but
I'm with you, man. I'll believe it when I see it.
Right. Until I see
I'm sick of it.
I just can't in good faith give him that nod. As if I were a Packers fan like you, I would be able to, but as someone who's not a fan,
King now. It's different this year.
It's different. I'm sure.
I don't know. They just got so much depth too. It's like their backup defensive line is Lucas Van Ness, TJ Slayton, Carl Brooks, and JJ Enigbare, which is not like, obviously if those were the 4 starters, it would be horrific. But like all of those guys I'm excited about as backups. And then Carrington Valentine, like the 2 rookie safeties, like I said, Corey Ballantyne. They just seem like a very complete, like you can't ask for much more talent. Like maybe you'd like a Nick Bosa, you'd like a Fred Warner, but I mean, it's about as good as it gets talent wise. I can't really complain, so we'll see.
I'll give a few more just throwaway honorable. So obviously the Colts, I'm a huge fan of what their defensive line is going to look like this year, but I have major concerns for the rest of the defense. But I do think the pass rush is going to be, at least just as good as it was last year, along with the run defense. They've got a pretty, electric duo inside. And then I think their edges outside of Latu took some big strides last year. And then obviously what Latu's going to bring could be even greater. But I've talked about them to death. I think the Raiders are a little bit slept on. They were kind of an efficient group defensively last year, and they added Christian Wilkins. The raw numbers don't give them a whole lot of love, but they were top 10 in points allowed, and they were one of the top EPA teams last year. Those success rate stands kind of low, and I think the addition of Wilkins could make them just a little bit better. I don't think they're going to be top 10, but I think it's worth mentioning. And then a team that I didn't write down, but I'm going to continue to give a little bit of love to, is that the Falcons were a pretty solid defense last year through EPA and through success rate. And the only thing that would make me not talk about or not write them down is that I don't think they got better. And so I think they're probably, like, if you don't get better, you get worse. And they do have major issues with rushing the passer and stuff. So, but I do think they have some talent to get stuff done. And they clearly weren't like a terrible defense last year. I don't think they're going to be a terrible defense this year, but I don't think they're going to be top 10.
If you can get pressure, the rest might just fall into place. And with Crosby, Wilkins, and Kuntz, like that's a pretty good place to start. It would surprise me if they entered the top 10, but like you said, they might be a little underrated. I don't mind
the Raiders I think are definitely a little bit underrated. They're just, I don't know. I was just like looking at the numbers from last year. And I'm like, the roster doesn't stack up to this. Man. It's like
makes it a little tough.
I don't want to be too disrespectful, but to be completely honest, Freddie Kitchens vibes. Back half of last season, things started to go really well. Look inside, and it's like the back half of their schedule was like Giants, Jets, Denver, Vikings. I will say they played the Chiefs twice back half. One time led with 31 points. The other time that was like one of like their kind of like big wins. Like that was kind of their big day when they beat the Chiefs, and they deserve credit for that.
They also could be getting helped out a lot by the one game where against the
where they had like 100 pick sixes against the Chargers or whatever, and they put up 63 points.
That game could be
probably are getting helped out by that.
And I believe I remember it was Christmas during that Chiefs game, so I wasn't watching it that closely because I was with family. But I have this memory of Pacheco handing it off to Mahomes and like there being a fumbled snap. I may have been. Maybe I was off too much eggnog, but I feel like I remember that sequence happening in a Raiders Chiefs game last year where I like looked at the screen and I hadn't really been paying attention. And like one was Jack Jones, like high stepping into the end zone, which shout out to him. And then the other thing I remember was like a horrific trick play fumble.
Oh my god.
So we'll see. We'll see about the Raiders. I do like their pass rush, but and I like Bowers, but
I don't. It's weird. Like the roster doesn't really stack up, and if we're just talking about the defense, like outside of the defensive line, it's not looking good. But
if
the numbers,
you were to go,
the numbers were pretty solid last year, especially in the back half. So it's like,
yeah, I just could see that regressing. And if you look at the Raiders and if you judge them by their most important pieces, like let's say GM, head coach, top assistant, quarterback, like it's probably as bad as it gets.
It's probably dead last. Well,
if you look at just those 4 things.
Would it be dead last? I'm trying to think. Washington, maybe?
Washington is also up there. Washington might be dead last. We got, Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels. So I don't like that either.
Yeah. It's
but in Las Vegas, it's Telesco. It's like Getsy, Pierce, and Aiden O'Connell.
Aiden O'Connell being your starting quarterback is so funny.
Really, it's more Patrick Graham as opposed to Getsy, but for slander purposes, we'll say Getsy.
I mean, for slander, we'll say Tom Brady's the owner, and
right? Yeah, it's Tom, Crosby, Adams, and Bowers. Really?
Yeah, man. That's the team, but. That's our top 10. We'll run through it one more time, just so you guys have it. And of course, we'll post the graphic on Twitter and Instagram. But number 1, we had the New York Jets. Number 2, the Cleveland Browns. Number 3, Baltimore Ravens. Number 4, Kansas City Chiefs. Number 5, Dallas Cowboys. Number 6, Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 7, San Francisco 49ers. Number 8, Houston Texans. Number 9, Miami Dolphins. And number 10, the New England Patriots. That's our consensus top 10 NFL defenses in the NFL. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. We'll be back with more content coming your way, with live streams, more episodes. But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.